now. Okay. Hi, Steve Macklin. It's great to see you again. Thanks for agreeing to join us on this webinar to talk about your coaching experiences. I've got to say through the ages, but you're way too young for me to describe that. But,
the years are going by quick now.
Yeah, and you're over there in Qatar, probably struggling with the COVID chaos like the rest of us. Would that be right?
Yeah, it's we had our roughest time was probably March to through to June, and then after that things got better. So at least now we're back able to train with the athletes and use facilities and just follow all the usual protocols. But everything is getting normalish.
Right, yeah, getting back into routine, and invariably as athletes and as coaches, we work by routines, so that's really important. But yeah, so shall we start with these questions then? So the first question I'd like to ask you was, as a coach, what are your main processes that you focus on? Maybe, perhaps 3 processes you focus on as a coach with your athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I looked at the questions, kind of there's 2 ways to look at it. So some of the processes outside of the actual training, and then the specifics of training. In terms of specifics of training, I guess I have all the key ingredients in the program for endurance athletes, from pure speed to short power hills to easy running, recovery running, to tempo threshold intervals, to specific race specific work to the long run, and obviously S&C, hurdle drills and cross training where needed as well. So everything is in the program. I guess it's just really at different times of the year, different things are emphasized, but we never stray too far away from any of it. So the athletes are never going more than 2 weeks without touching on pure speed, without being in the gym, without doing a long run, etc. But it's just the emphasis at different times of years on particular aspects of the training. But I'm a firm believer. I'm not somebody that lies in the speed camp or the endurance camp. I believe everything's important: speed, strength, and endurance. And the work in the gym and the work, hurdle mobility stuff, drills, etc., to keep an athlete robust and develop strength and power is most important as well. So I think everything is included in the program.
Lovely, yeah. And just going back to strength, but when you're developing strength, would that be strength endurance, absolute strength, elastic strength?
Yeah, so over here we have our own S&C coach specifically that works with our endurance guys, and I guess his program is periodized as well, just like our run program throughout the year. So there's different emphasis on different things during the year, but right now the guys are kind of just laying foundations. So it's strength endurance stuff. We have a bit of a circuit with different exercises one day, and then we're in the gym when they're doing some specific lifts, kind of almost max strength stuff in the gym. There's a little bit of plyos in there, different types of plyos. So there's a mix of stuff, just with a different emphasis. And then his program changes as we go through the year, and we're approaching competition. There's obviously a different emphasis on what they're doing in the gym.
Lovely. And can I just remind myself the age groups that you're working with?
Yeah, so we have a program with 22 endurance athletes, and they're from they start at the age of 12 and run their up to 19 years old, so between the ages of 12 and 19. So essentially we have a development program for guys in the first 3 years in the academy. So like back home, first year, second year, third year would be grade 7, 8, 9 here. And then fourth, fifth, sixth year back home would be grade 10, 11, 12 here. So the development program is essentially the first 3 years of secondary school. And these guys do a mix. So they do some sprint and mechanics work with a sprints coach in one session during the week. They do some swimming, they do some aqua jogging, they do some multi kind of sport and multi-event approach. And then they have a couple of sessions of running. So they have a mix of things in the week. It's just to develop them as all-around athletes, essentially. And then when they come into the performance program, the last 3 years, we get into more of a focus on the endurance side of running, and they're kind of graduated into the program in grade 10, and then they're doing more and more running, we'll say, and more specifics of endurance in those years.
Lovely. Wow. Yeah, that's a great setup. And in terms of transitioning between the groups, is there much of that happening? You know, if you know, somebody turns out to be more suited to perhaps 400 rather than 800, is there another opportunity for them to join the sprint group? Or
yeah, so that's the thing. The development program we kind of have a separate endurance development group, but they join with a kind of a generic development group. So you have a mix of jumps, sprints, and throws guys, essentially. Mm-hmm. And nobody is earmarked as such in a particular event group, really, until they're kind of approaching grade 9 for the most part. And then from grade 10 on, they're going into the specific. They're going throws, jumps, sprints, or endurance. Right. So like our endurance guys, endurance is slightly different out here because a lot of the endurance athletes tend to come from an African origin. So countries like Sudanese, Moroccan, Algerian, Tunisian, Yemeni. So these type of countries, and they're basically, I guess, their natural physiology and their natural body types, etc. They're kind of real with good engines, etc. They're born for endurance, really, and they're not don't tend to be suited towards any event group, but they still do the mix of the multi-sport and multi-event approach for those first couple of years, and then as they go through the academy, they do more and more in the endurance field. But the sprints, jumps, throws athletes, they tend to be more Qatari athletes, Qatari origin, and with the odd few from maybe their parents from outside country, but they tend to be more so, and then they're not suited to endurance.
And then that's probably, as they come into the academy or the development squads, they'll do a series of tests that probably highlight their natural.
Yeah, so during that development, those 3 years, they're doing multiple sets of tests a number of times during the year. So they'll do pure speed, max 30 meter.
Just paused a bit there, Steve. I don't know if it's my signal or your signal. But I will just talk through this. Are you back now, Steve?
You're good now. Yeah, I have you now.
Okay.
So yeah, they do a whole battery of tests kind of during those years as well, and you get to see where a guy might be suited towards what event group as well, you know.
Gotcha. I've got most of you, but we will fill in the blanks later on. Okay, the next question I want to ask you is, as a coach, you know, what are you focusing on to develop yourself? Because we never stop learning, so it'd be interesting to know which areas you're working on yourself as a coach, Steve, to develop.
Yeah, so I guess a big area for me is that I'd be weak on would be the S&C side. And so like I sit in all the gym sessions with our group and watch the S&C coach and look at the program of what they're doing, getting a better idea around the technique of the various exercises and the lifts and so on, plyos, whatever they're doing. So that's been really good to be able to just get that hands-on applied knowledge from sitting in and watching those sessions. And then the other thing, I guess I've always had a keen interest in the physiology side of things, but I'm trying to get more in-depth knowledge on it from the testing we do in the lab with the various different profile athletes, and seeing the differences over time with what we're doing with the training and where the progress goes to. So just trying to get upskilled more on that side as well. And then we're lucky here in the academy to have personnel in sports science across all the event groups, from sports psychology to nutrition to physiology to strength and conditioning to biomechanics. There's loads of really good people here across the whole sports science sphere, and then obviously the coaches and the other event groups as well to learn from. So we've had some kind of in-house coaching corner workshops over the last number of months, and then obviously within the training environment we have this personnel that will be applying their expertise, and you get to see get better insight into all those areas as well. So I think that's useful for me in a coaching front. And then the last thing I'll say is probably I learn most with just the day-to-day coaching with the athletes, and coaching every day and twice a day a lot of the time, and you make mistakes and you make learnings along the way, and especially with guys from different backgrounds, different cultures. We're in a different country, and things are done differently, and they have different idea of endurance, etc. So it has its challenges. And then there's the language barrier as well. Like, we have a couple of guys that don't speak English, so you have to coach and the guy doesn't speak any English, so you have to figure out ways around that, and how that's developed, and how you can actually coach somebody that doesn't speak a word of English too.
So just to elaborate on that, I mean, obviously aligning languages, aligning communication, and I think that's one of the things we said just before we started this recording, was that communication is really important, and clarity. But what kind of I don't know, tricks or top tips do you have for aligning communication, and also that you talk about the culture, so how does the endurance culture in the Middle East or Qatar differ from Ireland?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the culture first. So first of all, I guess Qatar is the only developing sport really over the last, we'll say, 10 years for the most part. And before that, there wouldn't have been a lot of activities in the country, even primary school, secondary school. So you are working with many kids that don't have, we'll say, a strong upbringing from doing a number of sports. They don't have natural fitness, we'll say. So for endurance, it can be a challenge. Then also there's a club system here that's rewarded financially, which creates difficulty. So athletes are required to run for the club, and the club gets money depending on the points the athletes get in a certain race and overall. And I guess that's a dangerous system as well, because some of the athletes at these young ages are given a salary, they're given a payment by the club to compete for the club, which I think is wrong at those ages. And then it's all about success, it's all about winning, it's all about pushing, and that's the mentality that's in the clubs here. So you have coaches that are full-time coaches that are employed by the clubs, and they're paid a salary brought from certain countries, and they're there just to win and win points and have success for the club. So the mentality then tends to be push, push, push. You have to train hard. You need to be doing hard fartlek, hard track sessions. And, the young kids in the clubs that aren't in Aspire, that's the training environment they come from. So some of the guys that we have that come into Aspire, this is what they're used to. Push, everything needs to be hard. You need to only run. If you're on a bike, or if you're in the pool, or if you're in the gym, it's questioned, we'll say.
No pain, no pain, no strain attitude.
Yeah. There's not an understanding of the whole endurance sphere and training and that there's many ways to get to a performance. So the culture is different on that front. And then obviously we have the environmental side with the weather. So there's a number of months in the year where the guys can't run outside because of the extreme heat and humidity. So you have to do a lot of training inside, which is a difficulty. And then also there's a late night culture here with regards to families and kids they go to sleep very late, and yet they're up early in the morning at 5 a.m. to pray. So then you have athletes that get not enough sleep, which is an issue. We have issue with bloods as well. So when you get bloods done with athletes, common problem across all our endurance athletes and many athletes in the academy is low vitamin D levels, because they're actually not out in the sun much. They spend a lot of time inside.
I came across a similar problem in Las Vegas. Yeah. People in Las Vegas, they don't go out.
Yeah. So what you see then is when you get the test done, you see really low vitamin D levels. So all the guys are on a vitamin D supplement. And also for some reason, still trying to pinpoint why, but the ferritin, hemoglobin tend to be very low as well at times. So all our guys are taking an iron supplement and they're taking a vitamin D supplement pretty much year round. And it's, I don't know, is it a genetic thing from where their background, what countries they're coming from, or is it purely down to nutrition? But no matter what interventions are put in place, it's a battle. So like all of those things on the cultural side, they're quite different from what you face back home in Ireland and UK. And then when we come to communication, obviously you've got guys that have decent English, not perfect, but decent. You can have good conversations. And then you've got guys that have just a little English, so they understand a little. And then you have a couple of guys, especially younger guys, that have no English, and they only start to learn it as they go through the academy. So I think what Dave McCarthy, who's here coaching with me, and myself have found, and the other coaches coming from Europe, is you have to slow down how the tempo of your speech. You know, like Dave has a strong Dungarvan Waterford accent, and I'm from Cork, and you can't talk like you're talking to somebody back home in Ireland. You have to really slow down your vocabulary. You have to make it very clear, and you have to put it in simple English. There can be no slang, it has to be very simple. So for me as a coach, that's been a huge learning, the communication side of what you say and how you say something. And often a guy will say, yes, coach, yes, but they haven't taken in. So then when you get a yes, coach, you get another guy and you get him to translate exactly what you're saying, a good guy with good English to translate it to the guy with weaker English. So is it very clear? You understand? Very clear? And then you have it. So it takes patience as well, I suppose, to have all those conversations, to slow things down, to make sure they fully understand. Because they'll often not want to admit that they don't understand. So it's very dangerous. You think you've said something, they understand it. Yes, coach. But really, they haven't understood it, and they don't want to look vulnerable or say that they haven't understood it.
And you're right.
It's dangerous.
It happens. I know with my background in teaching and in coaching younger people and new coaches on coaching courses, it's they don't want to be picked out as the one that doesn't understand. But usually, if you don't understand, there's probably at least 3 others that don't understand us too. But because of the vulnerabilities and insecurities of how we are in the 21st century, we'd all speak up. So good point there that using a co-coach to repeat what they've said. And
But the communication side here is 100 times more important than it would have been back home, because it was everything that came out of your mouth was understood straight away. Now, obviously, it's very important back home as well with athletes, but it's critical here so they have an understanding. Also, we found that we've had to spend a lot of time just trying to change the thinking and the philosophy around what they thought endurance training should be and what we're trying to educate them on, and that, you know, you don't have to smash yourself and work out. You don't have to be running huge amount of volume, or, you know, you need to be in the gym developing specific areas and keeping yourself robust and injury free. And, you know, you can get great benefits aerobically and strength and power wise from being in a watt bike in an altitude room as much as you will being outside running for 40-50 minutes. And it's just a change of thinking and a change of philosophy as well, and just that takes time to develop with them as well. So we're trying to work on all this stuff with the young guys, so when they come into the performance program the last 3 years, that they understand the rationale behind what they're doing and why they do things.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then the no pain, no gain attitude. I think that's what I'd meant to say earlier. It's definitely a culture that we're trying to change. I think across the world, but I think, you know, as you've said, with that almost young professional system in place there, it's going to take time. It's going to take time and results, but usually it will come. I think the third question, you answered a lot of the pointers already about that, about your support crew, about the biomechanics, the physiology, and strength and conditioning people. You didn't mention psychologists. Psychology used much?
Yeah, we have psychologists here as well, and there's a couple, and they're utilized. We utilize them probably more with the younger guys in terms of just developing some of their behaviors and thinkings and team culture and stuff like that. I guess I find as a coach, you're pretty much acting as a psychologist on a daily basis with, you know, if you have a group of 10 guys, there's always some issues, there's always some conversations to be had, there's always confidence boosting, you know, there's various things you're always working on a daily basis. So I think it's probably a skill set as a coach to try and develop as much as possible and get more of an understanding around, because I think you're probably the person that they buy into most and trust most and are with most. So just learning what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and
how they tick and what they're doing it for, whether it's for themselves, for the parents, the team, you, etc. No, I absolutely agree. Yeah. Psychology is massive. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we obviously have access to all the various professionals in there. For me, as the head of the program, we need to just decide what performance services we use, why we're using them, and have a clear rationale around that. Because you can use everything: biomechanics, physiology, sports psychology, S&C, massage, physio. You know, there's nutrition. There's a never-ending amount of professionals and services that you can use, but it can become overbearing on the athletes as well, and it can become overbearing on the coaches, I think, too. So it's utilizing the services that really make a difference, and then how you utilize those services with the athletes, I think is key.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's all the gear and no idea, but it's got all the gear. Let's use the gear that fits and is most suitable to get the best out of our athletes. Yeah. Lovely. Probably heading towards the last questions too here. When it comes to tapering or peaking for a competition, you know, how do you do that? You know, and are there some competitions that you train right through, or you know, does everybody do a taper, particularly with it being a younger cohort that you're working with?
I guess with younger guys, I always typically like to certainly freshen up a little in the last 4 or 5 days leading into a competition, because for young athletes, they like competition, but they also like getting a good performance too, and it gives them a boost, and it gives them confidence. They really get the confidence from, obviously they get confidence from consistent training, but they really get the confidence from a race performance. If they run a personal best, you've got a guy that's beaming, they're happy, they're confident, and then they probably have better buy-in to what you're doing with your program. So sending a guy in heavily fatigued and they have a bad performance, it probably doesn't, it mightn't have a big bearing on the greater plan as you move forward, but it probably has a big bearing on the confidence and the happiness, I suppose, of a young athlete. And I think that could snowball then as well. So we tend to not train through too much. If we have a competition, we'll just freshen them up a little certainly in that last 4 or 5 days, and not do the last key workout will be taken down a notch in terms of intensity and volume, and just feel good, have more in the tank and be ready, and just get freshened up and be ready physically and psychologically for the performance then in the competition. So that really, when dealing with younger athletes, that's what I would do. And in terms of the training, again, it's just a little drop in load, and try and have a confidence boosting workout the 3, 4, 5 days whenever you decide to do it before that competition, and just they finish, they're feeling good, smiling, have more on the tank, and looking forward to getting out on the track in the competition, and not give them a workout that's going to put them in a hole or something they can't complete. Obviously, there's times, I think, during the training program where you get guys a little uncomfortable, and you give them some workouts that are very challenging and that take them out of the comfort zone. But certainly in the week of a competition, in the run into a competition, you want to keep confidence high and have them feeling good coming off the track.
Great. And then we've both been there, haven't we, trying to get the best out of ourselves, and
I think no matter what anybody says, there's no magic formula, there's no percentages, there's no this, that, the other. It's really an art of coaching and applying what's best for that athlete that's in front of you. So if they're 800-meter type or they're a 5K type, that taper probably looks a bit different. Some guys like to maybe have a bit more volume still in their week coming into a race, whereas an 800 type, maybe it's cut down quite an amount. So it's just trying to play around with what works for the athlete that's in front of you. But there's no set percentages, there's no set formula. You got to just play around a bit with the volume, the intensity, and really for me, it's about that being confident and the athlete feeling good and feeling ready, especially off that final kind of key workout into a competition. And then just good education around sleep, nutrition, hydration, and recovery, which is obviously very important.
Like you say, it's an art form, and it takes sometimes years to perfect. And what you were doing at 14, what you're doing at 24, quite often there's a good bit different there. And a lot of good pointers there. Finally, Steve, what do you do as a coach? What do you do to wind down when you're away from athletics and coaching?
Yeah, so my wind down out here since I've come to Qatar is swim, bike, and run. So I
got back to triathlon.
I got back doing a bit of triathlon. Just only over the last year or so here. I was always running and just keeping fit and so on. But I got back into bought a bike and did a competition last weekend actually. Just I swim, bike, and run. So that's the first thing I do in the morning. Wake up in the morning, have a coffee, go swim, bike, or run, and then that sets me up. And then I might do a second training session later in the evening, or go for a run with the boys in the afternoon, or whatever it is. So I exercise. It makes me feel good. It makes me think clearer. That's one thing. It's part of my day every day, consistently every day. That's just it's in my day. And then I like to switch off and watch a movie, watch a show on Netflix. I like just relaxing and switching off, and then also just doing a little bit of reading as well. And the last thing, I suppose, just catching up with friends, going for a coffee, going for a meal, and with my partner as well. Yeah. So yeah, that'd be my time outside of coaching. But I think I found a better balance here than I've had back home. Back home, I guess, was very, very busy. It was 7 days a week pretty much, because you were working, you're working 5-6 days a week. You're going to competitions at the weekend. You have a day's work done during the week, and then you're going to the track at night, and you mightn't get home till 9:30 or 10 o'clock. So they're long days. And then because competitions are every weekend, they're long weekends, and then it can be a long week leading into another week, and then obviously you have championships you're going away to, etc. So overall, the months, the year, it's very, very long. And definitely, I think, like, people that are working in professional sport back home, they need to find a balance around all that, because you cannot keep going like that over long periods of time. You crash and burn, or your productivity levels are going to drop. Whereas here, our competitions now are during the week, so our weekends are free. So Friday, Saturday, the weekends here. So you literally, we'd meet the boys sometimes Saturday mornings as well for a run or whatever. But for the most part, our full weekend is free. Our training is twice a day. At the moment, only we train once, with COVID and so on. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then by 6 o'clock, our work day is done. And any emails, calls, meetings, etc., is done in the 10 till 4 o'clock window. And there's never any meetings, any emails, any communication outside of those hours. It's kind of an unwritten rule in the way in the academy. It's like, right, these are the working hours. This is the coaching time. People are not ringing anybody after 6 o'clock, or they're not sending emails, or there's no meetings. It's done during those work hours, and then people need to go and have their life outside. And it works very well.
Excellent. And just one final question. How does the environment in Qatar compare? I mean, I'm immediately thinking of the desert and lots of flatlands. Is it like that?
Yeah, so it's obviously, if you saw a photo of Doha 30 years ago and Doha now, it literally just was a desert. But now the city is more and more developed. There's more and more parks being opened, so they tend to have a tartan track lane around the park, and they tend to have. We have Aspire Park at the edge of Aspire Academy, which has a perfect grass and is about 30-minute lap on grass all the way around the park. You have a tartan lane that goes around, and you have a firm sand track as well if you want it. So you have different surfaces.
Excellent.
But the terrain is pretty much dead flat here. When I talk about rolling little hills in one of the parks, I mean, they're little bumps. Okay. They're nothing back home. You cannot get a hill longer than the hill we use for power hill, short 10-second max effort sprints, is coming out of a underground car park in the academy, just up to outside, and it's only exactly about 8 to 10 seconds long. Yeah, that's as long as you get. We have a little bit of a grass hill in the park that's about 20 seconds long, but that's it. So it's really a flat topography, and but there are more and more parks. There's grass areas to run on, and you have a mixture of surfaces. I guess the weather extremes are the real tough part. So May to mid-October, that zone is difficult with heat and humidity.
Yeah, the one other thing is Ramadan that I wanted to mention. How do you do Ramadan and your athletes?
Yeah, Ramadan's a funny one, because basically it's 4 weeks. So the normal schedule is almost flipped. the boys train once a day, but we do our training at about 8:30 at night. So they break their fast. They break their fast at about 6:15 in the evening. So they've been fasting for a long time, and basically they have something small then, just little, because if they have too much, they can be upset stomachs, etc. So they have something little, drink some water, etc. Let it settle for 2 hours. We train at 8:30. Then they will come back and they will be up very late. So there'll be guys up with families, because it's a festive time as well. They'll be up with families. They'll be eating. They'll be drinking, etc. And basically that goes right through until sunrise, around 5 o'clock in the morning. So guys then are pretty much sleeping from the early hours of the morning right through until the afternoon. And they have maybe just a couple of hours of class in there as well. So it flips everything. It means some guys are not going to bed till 3, 4 in the morning. And then they're sleeping a lot till later in the day. So it's a challenge in terms of managing the training. You need to be very careful during that time as well, because they're probably not eating as many calories in a day as they would, and it's certainly not as spread out.
I was of the belief that I was just going to say I was of the belief that children are not obliged to do Ramadan, but I guess a young man or a young woman, for that matter, might be particularly keen to become an adult sooner and start the fasting sooner. Is that how it works?
Yeah, no, I mean all the kids in the academy, grade 7 up, they all partake in fasting. But it's from that hours of sunrise to sunset. So they are eating from, let's say, 6:15, 6:30 in the evening on, and they can eat as far as 4:35 a.m. in the morning. So there's windows to eat and drink, etc., and then it's just that fasting period.
And are there any women on the program?
But obviously so Aspire Academy is all male. It's an all male academy, but there's mixed schools around Doha, and there's individual sex schools as well. But the academy is 100% all boys academy.
Gotcha.
Across all the sports.
Gotcha. Wow. It sounds like like you say, an incredibly interesting place and a unique culture. And I don't know.
I guess it's giving you skill sets in your coaching armory that you can't get in European countries, with the culture, with the environmental side of things. I guess we're learning about training and adapting to heat as well all the time. We're learning about training in humidity. We're learning about the communication, the language side of things, and your actual your what you're saying, how you're saying it, why you're saying it, and you're thinking about that more than you would back home if you're speaking to somebody purely that speaks English. And then there's the cultural background as well of all the athletes, and most of these guys are born in Qatar. It's just their families have come here a number of years ago from these various countries. But you've got Yemen, Sudan, like these are big. They're countries with extreme war zones, and a lot of political unrest. So they have, each of the guys have their own family histories as well, and their own struggles that their families have been through in these places. So it's so different, but it's very enlightening to the
cosmopolitan.
What? Yeah,
big towns, big cities across the world.
Yeah,
full of many traditions.
And that's what you see around Doha as well. People think of it as being this desert, but it's extremely developed and vibrant city, and it's multicultural. You have people working here, living here, from countries all over the world. I mean, all over Europe, all over Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, America. I mean, there's people from Asia, different Asian countries. They're all over the world here, living and working. So it's very diverse.
Just like Dublin, really.
Yeah, a bit like Dublin.
Well, I mean, that's great. We've got a great insight into your coaching, particularly in Qatar. Comparing it to the cork setup, and there's lots of gold dust that I'm sure that the coaches are watching this will take. So thanks very much, Steve. And I look forward to seeing you in person and catching up in person.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully back next summer, all going well, if travel allows and everything. So looking forward to hopefully getting back and maybe get to the UK as well for some British Miners Club meets next summer if travel allows us.
They're always popular, and I dare say those Irish Milers meets are getting better as well. So who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
But, I'll just put on the record now. Thanks very much.
Perfect.